All right. So sorry about the delay, everyone. But we're gonna start off the student panel. Hello everyone. Yeah, welcome to the student panel. My name is Ryan Javid, and I will be your curious host for this tonight's event. So if you're here for the opening ceremony, you already know this, but I'm an event coordinator at Curious on the logistics team. I'm a grade 11 student going to grade 12 at Thornhill Secondary School, and I aspire to work in computer science. This is my first time hosting one of these workshops, so I hope to make it a good experience for everyone involved. Nevertheless, tonight I am joined by Fred, a CS student at the University of Montreal, and a game programmer intern at Behavior. I'm also joined by Zaid, a CS student at the University of Waterloo, and a software engineering intern at Riot Games. Lastly, I'm joined by Krissa, a system design engineering student also at the University of Waterloo, and a former user experience intern at Nanoleaf. I'm gonna let our students give a little introduction about themselves, starting with Fred. So
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Fred. Ryan said most of it. I'm a CS student at University of Montreal, and I work as a game programmer intern at Behavior Interactive, Montreal-based game company. And yeah, I code in multiple languages, and I guess we'll get into all that later. So that's about me.
thank you, Fred. So next, Zaid, go ahead.
Hey, yeah. So as was said, I'm Zaid. I'm a computer science student at the University of Waterloo. I'm in my third year, just finished my first study term of the third year, and I'm a software engineering intern at Riot Games. We can also get into the stack that's used, I guess, later on. But yeah, a nice hobby of mine is that I play every racket sport at least recreationally, and I used to play tennis competitively. And I only really started my journey in computer science after grade 12 ended.
Okay, that's great to hear. I hope to hear more about it. Next, Carissa. So,
All right. Hi. I'm not a CS student, unfortunately, but I'm Carissa. My name's Carissa, and I go to University of Waterloo for system design engineering. I'm in first year. I'm doing my 1B term at the moment. Didn't really prepare a cool fun fact, but I technically never finished third grade. That's my fun fact.
very interesting. Very interesting. All right. So sorry. Okay. So, now I will be starting off with some questions. So first, I want to talk about all of our students' experience in tech. So, Fred, can you give a summary of your journey in technology so far?
Yeah, sure. I started coding. Well, I started being interested in tech as a hobby. So in the Quebec system, it's secondary 3, so it's the 9th, 10th, 9th grade, I think, is the equivalent. Because some of my friends were interested in it as well, and we decided to start together. And some of my friends actually hosted a hackathon at my high school, so we participated in that, helped with the organization and all that. So that was my first project. It was a basic HTML CSS website for that hackathon, and then we just kept going with that. We challenged each other with a bunch of projects in a bunch of languages, and yeah. So then in CJEP for Quebec, so that's 10th, 11th grade. I was more interested in tech. I did a lot more serious programming, and especially during the quarantine, I really got into it, started coding a bunch of larger scale projects, and then decided to go into CS at university. So that's where I'm at now.
Oh, that's great. Can you tell us a bit about like what aspects of technology, like specifically, you were interested in during high school, and like how you developed these interests?
Yeah, I mean, definitely game dev was always one of the sort of areas of computer science or of tech that interested me really, mostly because it was, sort of fun for us. We were pretty young into like programming and all that. So it was sort of the thing that we wanted to do was create games and play them with each other, make small games, send to our friends. Our friends would play them, find like 20,000 bugs and then send it back, stuff like that. And I kept that for sure. I'm still into game dev, obviously. I mean, I'm doing a game dev internship now, but I've also gotten into AI. I definitely think that's a really, really cool area of tech that's unexplored for the most part. So it's very exciting.
Yes, and okay, yeah. Um, and can you also give us like a summary of some like projects you worked on over the years, and kind of talk about which ones you specifically enjoyed and ones you didn't enjoy and why?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some of the projects, I mean, there's a lot. I made a lot of small prototypes. I think that's how a lot of people start, is with making these small programs, sort of like maybe 100 lines max, that they just make for fun and sort of never go back onto. I think it's the best way to learn is through projects, through, you know, experiencing, wanting to make a project, running into a problem, looking up the solution, and then whenever you run into that problem again, you remember how you solved it the first time, and you sort of, solve it like that. So I've done a lot of smaller projects. I've made a few games with friends. Definitely one of the project that I enjoyed the most was making in hackathons. I really enjoy making these small projects. Well, small in the sense that in a short period of time, because working on the same project for a while is really difficult to stay interested in that project, especially if you're stuck in a roadblock. I think it's one of the bigger problems that a lot of people run into when they're coding, is sort of giving up on their project because they're stuck and they don't really know where to go from there. But yeah, I think definitely hackathon projects are the one that I enjoyed the most, especially because you're coding with other people that enjoy it as much as you. So I think that's definitely the part of coding that I enjoy the most.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah, and yeah, I definitely agree. Those roadblocks is kind of what causes like a lot of beginner developers to kind of have like a ton of prototype projects that are never finished because of like one big bug, right? So next I'll hand it over to Zaid. So Zaid, can you tell us a bit about your a summary of your journey in technology so far?
For sure, yeah. So I said in my intro again that I got into tech pretty late. Basically, everyone in this call and everyone at Learnathon, if you guys are at high school, you've begun your tech journey before I have. So good job on that already. I first got in, I guess, around close to the middle / end of grade 12, when I saw a lot of my friends kind of engaging in their own like journeys in tech. I had a friend who was already in a couple of internships despite being in high school, and I was inspired by him. So I was kind of looking into like, perhaps I might be able to like this. So I began off, as I think many do or did at the time, with competitive programming. And by competitive, I mean I'd look up questions on this site called EMOJ. I don't know if anyone, yeah. And I'd essentially do the questions there and try to learn C++, which was the language that I began with off of there. I found it really cool. I was always like interested in math and puzzles and like things that have a start state and end state and like an algorithm to get from one to the other. So I found that this was kind of like a dopamine dose of exactly that. So I thought it was super cool, and that's essentially how I began, right? I applied to the University of Waterloo with kind of no projects on my bench with relations to tech, but what I did have was a lot of leadership positions in a bunch of mental health initiatives. At my high school, I was the co-president of a mental health student-led initiative called Ad Astra. It now actually has a branch, as I understand, in McMaster as well, which our former president had begun. And I was also the school representative for youth. I forgot what it stood for, but it was YES for MH, which was a kind of like a separate initiative to inspire funding into mental health at schools. We had a bunch of conferences, and I was the person going in for that. I took it more of the academic route into here, like at LU. I'm doing a major in computer science with a minor in psychology, actually. But yeah, so that's how I began my tech journey. My first hackathon was in my second term of first year university. And I kind of built up my project through these hackathons. Waterloo also has a very good co-op program, and Riot Games right now is my fourth internship. My first three were all also software engineering internships. The first one was actually with a professor at the school. We co-designed a COVID-19 related application. This was in the summer of 2020. My second co-op was at a medical tech startup. My third was at a subsidiary of a huge flight company making their flight operation software. And my fourth lands me here at Waterloo. So that is my tech journey so far.
That's very interesting, Zaid. Yeah, DMARG is a very cool site actually. I started off on there as well. But yeah, okay, so now I'll hand it over to Carissa to talk about her journey.
I don't think my journey is quite as interesting as the other two because I don't do programming as much. Like my branch is more UX and related to design. So, and I also started quite late. As like in high school, I was the art kid because I went to this art specific program that just forced me to just be creating art all year. It wasn't really particularly related to UX or graphic design at the time, but in high school, I did graphic design in grade 11 for my school's robotics team. Yeah, and that kind of got me interested into graphic design. And grade 11 is kind of the time when you start looking into the paths that you want to go into in grade 12 because you have to start thinking about universities. So when I was looking at graphic design jobs, I realized there's this thing called UX design. And so I kind of got curious, like what is this? I've never seen this in my life because I wasn't really a tech kid before then. So then I looked into UX design, got really interested, and that kind of led me to pursue other like opportunities, like just small projects here and there on just UX projects and also a few graphic design projects. My major graphic design UX project I actually did after I got into university. It was for the College Plus Amazon Adobe Creative Jam. So I ended up participating in it with my friend and we did really well. We got finalists, and that's, I guess, since you asked earlier to highlight kind of a major project that I did. That's the biggest project that I did. In high school though, like if you haven't really started going into something yet, don't worry too much about it because I started really late and I'm still here. And so, yeah.
Thank you, Carissa. Yeah, you're showing everyone that no matter what when you start, you can still get into tech. So next I will hand it off to Fred to talk about so I was like a CS student at University of Montreal. Can you tell us a bit about what your courses are like? Like a description or like a summary.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the CS programs in quite a few universities are pretty similar for the courses that we have to take. For UdeM in particular, and I know it's very, very similar to McGill, we have a few math classes we have to take usually in the first year, maybe second year if you haven't taken them in the first year. And then it's mostly programming classes. I do have some hardware programming, so some VHDL and all of that. And then, you also have the discrete structures, all of the math and / logic side of it. So there's, I think there's 4 main parts in the program, being the pure math classes. So I'm talking like calculus, stats, linear algebra, and all that. Then you have the programming classes, which are, you just code. So Python, I have Python, Java. I think I'll have some Haskell, Rust. And then you have logic classes, which really just teach you about how the computer thinks. So basically, the discrete structures, the Boolean operators, and all of that. And then the last part would be the hardware, where you really learn how a computer works. So, the different parts of a computer and how to make them work. So I think those are the main 4 parts of CS, at least at U of M. And Zaid, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think they're pretty similar in all universities.
Yeah, I'll actually pass on to Zaid here. So Zaid, kind of continuing off what Fred said. So do you have any like unique courses to like as like a TS Waterloo student?
We do less hardware than other places. I would think for computer science, it might be like the software engineering route that does a lot more, but basically my route through university in first year, I think that's pretty similar. You take a lot of math, computer science, maybe some speech communication or English classes to just round it out. Second year, you take a little bit more focus on computer science and heavy math as well. Second year, I actually took, I took linear algebra, 3rd level calculus, introduction to combinatorics, which is also a math course, and then your typical computer science courses. One of them was introduction to software engineering and C++. The other was computer logic. And there was one that was semi-hardware that essentially taught us about the relationship between software and the very low-level hardware, such as things like transistors or registers, coding and assembly, things like that. Now, I feel like in going into my 2nd term of my 3rd year, I'm beginning to kind of more be introduced to the unique courses that Waterloo offers. I'm not necessarily sure if other universities have these, but they do seem very specialized and cool. An example of a course that I'm taking next term is CS 451. That is data intensive distributed computing. So this is kind of heralded as the Cali co-op course, if I may. It's essentially, if you're working at a big company, you're going to want to know how the processing of data, the data pipeline and distributed systems work, because that's essentially the industry standard for most companies, I'd say. So I'm very excited for that course. Another one I'm taking is CS 370, and that's numerical computation. That's another one of those courses that is kind of somewhat underrated, lesser known. It's basically implementing all those like advanced mathematical concepts that you learn in 1st, 2nd, maybe even 3rd year into computer science. So I'm hyped for that, being someone who really likes math and has conjoined it with their love for computer science as well. Besides that, you would definitely find some of the more unique courses in 4th year. There's a lot of them on things that are really cool interdisciplinary fields. There's like a course on bioinformatics, which is biology, computer science. There's a course on human computer interaction, which is social psychology and comp sci. A bunch of those like interdisciplinary fields making up a course. And I think those are really where the uniqueness comes from at Waterloo. I don't know if the same is also for other universities. I haven't checked personally, so it might be that case. But yeah, do let me know, guys.
All right. So essentially what I'm kind of getting is that like in the later years is when you have more the Waterloo unique courses.
I can't say like Waterloo unique because I haven't actually looked if there's any equivalent courses in other universities, but they definitely do seem very specialized. As I said, they're
Okay.
like mostly the results of interdisciplinary fields.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Okay. So now, to get a bit of a mix. Carissa. Sorry. Uh, sorry. Okay. Can you tell us a bit about as like a system design engineer student, what the assignments and tests are like, and can you give us any examples?
I think side is side is a very unique course. I'm not sure if there's other universities in Waterloo that offer in Canada that offer system design engineering. As far as I know, it was a very new course to me when I was looking through OUAC. But we have a variety of classes, which means that our assignments are kind of well balanced, as in we have design courses, which means that we have projects. And then we have like CS courses, which also means we have, CS assignments and calculus, physics, Algebra, which is healthy dose of tests as well. So I think we have a pretty good mix. Usually you'll have like a looming design project that goes on for a bit longer, while in between you'll have your just your tests and your CS assignments. That CS assignments are usually weekly. So we have like weekly CS assignments and then tests depending on the course every other week or every week, and a design project that you're working on for a little bit longer.
Okay, interesting. So it's like a mix between like like CS and like design, right? So all right. Now giving it back to Fred. Can you tell us what your favorite and least favorite courses are from your experience at your time at University of Montreal?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, I'm much more of a software coding sort of guy rather than the math aspect of it. So I think the class for now, I'm still giving some time, but the class that I liked the least was Calculus 3. That was it was tough. I mean, it lives up to its reputation. And I think for the classes that I like the most, it would have to go to the coding classes. It's not necessarily that they're particularly easy or anything. I think they're pretty well made in the sense that they're interesting for people of pretty much any level. So even though I did have some experience in programming before doing the class, there was still a lot of new stuff that I learned, and the assignments were, pretty interesting to code up, even if I, could have coded them up before doing the class. I think learning about the new concepts and stuff like that is definitely interesting, even for someone who does have past experience in coding. So I do think that would be my favorite classes for that. I think hot take, I really enjoyed discrete structures. I love logic, Boolean algebra and all that. That was really interesting to me. So, finding if it's something is true or all of that, I don't know. For me, it was really, really interesting. And I really like that class, but I know that a lot of people might disagree with me. And I see from the look on Carissa's face that maybe she does it.
That's great to hear. So okay, so you'd say you wouldn't have to have previous knowledge and like coding to get into CS. However, you would say it gave you an advantage though.
I think that's definitely something that a lot of people have wrong. A lot of people are scared to go into CS because they don't have prior experience in coding.
Yeah.
I think the classes are definitely made to be accessible to people who don't have prior coding experience.
Mm-hmm.
It, of course, obviously it gives you an edge if you already know how the language work, if you've done some projects in the past, but it's definitely doable. I know a lot of people who are in my program who did not have coding experience before the first programming class. So basically they wrote their first lines of code, the first few weeks of class, and they did pretty well in those classes as well. So I think if you can, it's definitely good to, dabble around in Python or something before your first class, or to check what your, Comp 101 class is, what language it is, and sort of maybe the summer before, just sort of learn about how that language works. But it's definitely not maybe as important as a lot of people think. The
Okay,
classes
yeah.
are made to be accessible for sure.
Okay, so not required, but gives you a slight edge. Okay, interesting. All right, so now next, this kind of goes for Krista and Zaid, but can you tell us a bit about for Waterloo, about the clubs and extracurriculars outside of school?
Sure. I actually wanted to first follow up with something Fred said.
Mhm.
While previous computer science experience does actually help you in second, third year when you do industry languages like C++, C, some courses even offer Java, I think. It actually hurts you in first year. And the reason being is because you do a purely functional language called Scheme. Basically, it's a derivative of Scheme called Dr. Racket. And previous computer science knowledge in languages like C++ and C, professors say that those actually hurt your experience in first year courses, because you're going to have to kind of adjust yourself to a different way of working through problems. So it's just an interesting thing on top of what Fred said. With regards to extracurriculars, me personally, I really love sports in basically every single term that I was in person at LU, which has only been 3, unfortunately. I've signed up for intramurals. This last one, I played both soccer and basketball. The next one, I'm planning to try to maybe up that to 3 things and include volleyball in that. I think it's a great way to kind of meet new people, because you do have to band together and find your own team, or you could band together with your friends as well. That's also a great option. I think intramurals though are a great way, a great activity as well to add to your extracurricular portfolio, essentially.
All right, interesting. So, sorry, you said it was called Dr. What was that? Sorry.
Dr. Racket here. I can
Racket.
type it in the
Yeah,
chat.
I saw Krista was seems like she's familiar with it. So
a lot of people don't like it. I don't like it either. I did not like it either. But it's supposed to teach you core programming fundamentals, and mostly recursion, I think is how they sold it to us. But yeah, it's not a very well liked language.
Interesting. Okay. And Krista, can you tell us a little bit about your clubs and extracurricular life at Waterloo, from a different perspective?
Okay, so I'm also going to start with Racket, because I didn't personally use Racket, but I have a lot of friends in CS, and I remember them just telling me that this language is not Googleable. It's not accessible on Stack Overflow. And that's why everyone was having a great time doing it, because they couldn't get any outside help, because it was everyone's first time doing it. Yeah, so that was the thing. But side students start with C++, so we have a bit of a better time in first year. As for extracurriculars, I personally didn't really sign up for any this term, because it's my first term in person, so I didn't know how much work I could take while doing an extracurricular, because I'm already kind of doing one outside of school. But it's actually pretty manageable. I don't think I'm the smartest person in my class, but definitely it's doable to at least do 1 or maybe 2 extracurriculars. I have friends who do this thing called Blueprint, which is pretty unique, where they it's a extracurricular in Waterloo that they partner up with nonprofits and they create applications and like solutions for nonprofits. Like the students come together and create these things. It's really cool and it's totally great, like a way to add stuff to your portfolio and stuff. Yeah, and I know for intramurals, I didn't sign up for any this year either because I did swimming in high school, but I didn't really think with COVID it would be safe to do swimming here again. But I know they offer beach volleyball. I watched some yesterday, and they also offer ultimate frisbee, which is really cool to watch. Yeah.
Cool, cool. Yeah. Okay, interesting. Yeah, ultimate frisbee is really cool. But now passing on to Fred. In terms of the University of Montreal, can you tell us a little bit about the campus life and like how's like different from high school, right?
Yeah, I think a U of M has a very unique campus in the sense that it's on the mountain. So it's really, really cool. There's a lot of people who are on campus. I mean, we've been in person. I've been in person for my whole university life. So I'm starting my second years now. So even last fall, we were already in person, with masks, obviously, but it was fun to live the campus life from the get-go, to meet a lot of people in the first classes. I think that's important for university life as well, is to meet people. I think that's a very underrated part of going into even tech specifically, I'd say, because it's very project based. And I think finding people in your program, just to do random projects with and stuff like that is very, very important. There are people that you're going to keep and they're great contacts because they'll end up somewhere, they're going to help you out, get you a job somewhere, you never know. And it's great to stay in contact with people because obviously everyone in tech, I'd say I'm talking for CS here, but everyone in CS is interested in tech. So you'll inevitably end up crossing paths with someone that you went to university with. So, talking to people and all of that on campus is definitely great. As for the campus life specifically, so at U of M, we have a department, basically like a building for computer science and research. So we have our own smaller building on the side. So it's really cool because you basically, when you walk around, everyone is in tech. So, you see people coding everywhere. You see people talking about like your homework, basically. So you sort of end up talking to people, helping each other out. That honestly, it's a great environment and it's really just fun to chill at school. So I think that's a very important part.
Thank you, Fred. Yeah, and yeah, networking is definitely a very, very crucial part of tech industry, right? Networking, gives you a big advantage, right? So, next, so you guys have all are currently in or have been in a like work or co-op. So I want to take some time to talk about that. First, I want to give it to Zaid to talk about his experience. About his experience at Riot Games. And first off, how do you get the position at Riot Games?
Yeah, so prior to this, I mentioned before, I've had 3 internships. So I definitely had more experience than I'd say a lot of other university students in the same position. I think that's mostly due to the great co-op program at Waterloo. We get 6 internships in our undergraduate career. So that helps a lot. But essentially, the way you do it, you simply apply on their site. Their process has 5 stages. The first one is a technical assessment, which is pretty standard. Every company has something of that sort. The next one's a recruiter phone call, followed by another technical interview to kind of solidify your technical skills. An interview that's behavioral with a potential team member, and finally an interview with your hiring manager that is also behavioral. It is very very long and very stressful. But yeah, so far my experience here has been, I'd say the work environment is by far the best of any other internship I've been at. It's very, very supportive of the intern or of the employee. It's truly like the first internship at which I felt that I can ask any question I want, even though if it's like a question that I may think I should already have the answer to, or like if they're assuming I may have the answer to and they're just skipping by it, I can like stop them in their tracks, ask any question I want. It's very supportive that way. Everyone's always willing to help you out. Everyone's always willing to talk to you and get to know you. Another thing they do really well is a lot of initiatives to kind of bring everyone in together and try to get you to meet and make connections with as many people as possible. So it's fantastic from a work environment point of view. My work term is unfortunately remote, so I missed out, I guess, like on a truly full experience by being on the Riot campus, which, if anyone knows about that, is basically Riot Wonderland. It has really cool thematics that are reflected in their games. There's a video actually online on their channel that takes you on a tour around the campus. So yeah, I miss out on that, but even despite that, I'd say by far it has the best work environment of any company I've interned at or even heard of from for friends and colleagues of mine. In terms of the actual work I'm doing, I'm a software engineer on backend services for their hit game League of Legends. So my work is kind of similar to my past few internships, with the exception that it has a much higher impact than my work at the past few internships, which I appreciate highly as well. I think to get through the interviews, it really helps to kind of practice behavioral strategies, I guess. You kind of want it to make it seem to the interviewer that you can not only be a great coworker to them, but also a great person to get along with, a potentially great friend. I think they really appreciate things like that. So yeah, was there anything else that you'd like to know on top of that?
Yeah, so also so you mentioned this was your fourth internship, right? Can you tell us a bit about your experience getting your first internship? Because that's where like most people get like, kind of stuck, right?
Yeah. My first internship was very well timed. It was like right on the beginning of the pandemic. So it's right when everyone like dropped all their job postings. At Waterloo, when you're trying to find a co-op internship on their internal job board, there are a few rounds. The first one is the main round, followed by a secondary round, I think it's called, and then the third round is continuous round. Usually, most of the industry standard or good jobs are in the main round, or some of them trickle to the secondary round. The continuous round is kind of like your last shot. I say it's the last shot, but it's actually very expansive. You get the most job postings in the continuous round as opposed to the first two. And it actually took me all the way to the continuous round to find my first co-op. It was a internship with a professor at the university. I was working alongside him and another, I think, mercenary developer that he'd essentially hired. And we were working together to develop an application to help virtualize some interactions in the healthcare system, because the professor had noted that trying to get a doctor for any reason other than COVID at the time was almost impossible. So being able to virtualize that was a great idea, I guess, for areas in need, which almost the entire province of Ontario at the time definitely was. So that's how I got the first one. It did take me a while. A lot of people tend to panic a lot after a long time of like not being able to find a job, and like maybe their friends have found one before them and things like that. But I'd say definitely don't do that. However much time you think you have way more than that to find an actual internship. I think it's always good to keep that in mind. For me, it helped that all my friends were kind of in the same boat as me because it was out of our hands with COVID. But I think even if it wasn't for that, I think that would still stand true.
Thank you. Those are some great words of inspiration. So next I'll pass on to Carissa to talk a bit about her experience at Nanoleaf, and tell us some like skills you developed or learned, right? And also can you like give us a little rundown of the average day of a co-op student?
So yeah, Nanoleaf was my first co-op. I also got it in continuous round. And yeah, I was a UX design intern, which meant that I worked on their web app and also their mobile app. And it was my first professional UX position. So any skills that I had known previously were kind of just, it was for my own pace. But I think I got really more efficient at using things like journey maps or wireframing, which are more UX specific skills for like soft, like skills that I would use in the future. And I learned more of the process of creating the designs for the company, which means that when I created something, it needs to go through my manager. Oh, well, my manager is also UX designer, so it went through my manager. And then if the manager approved, it would go to the big meeting with the entire R&D team. We would think about it, and the ticket would come back to me, and then I would make the edits, and then it would go and usually be approved after that. On average, yeah, and well, soft skills. It was my first professional job, like not just like working at a fast food place type of job. So I learned like that networking is definitely really important. I was hybrid, so I did get the chance to go in and actually meet people and connect with them, like just even slightly outside of work hours, like eating lunch together or meeting up afterwards as well, which was also pretty great. An average day. So the remote days were kind of not very interesting because it was just me, the desk, and me. But in hybrid days, I would go to work like 9 a.m., check my tickets on for the day. And a bit of a difference in the ticket system between software and design is that usually when you're doing like software and CS and stuff, and you would have smaller bug tickets. So the smaller bug tickets you could get through decently quickly. I know my friend did more software things, and he got through like 8 tickets a day, like 9 tickets a day. It was insane. It's not the same for UX because when you're making a design, it'll show to everyone, right? So you have to make sure that it's good to go. Like you can't just like kind of edit it later. So I would finish somewhere between 1 to 4 tickets a day, depending on the type of ticket. Like if it's like a short ticket, just like, create a new little interface for this little feature, or like just make this announcement thing, then it would be pretty short. But then, yeah, I think that's a difference that I kind of noted. And right, yeah, that's what I would do. As an intern, but at Nanoleaf, I think my experience was pretty great because I did get a lot of creative control, and I felt like I left impact because I got to work on 2 kind of more major projects. Like I got to do the designing from end to end, which was honestly the first time I've ever done it. And it was really interesting to try designs for both the web app and the mobile app. And I liked how they treated, like we had a bunch of interns and they treated all the interns' opinions with definitely a lot of respect, and they consider them all. And I think this is a really good mindset to have as a company, to not to think about, to consider everybody's opinions not equally, but at least put them through to other people. So we did find a lot of solutions that way. Like the second major project I worked on was an idea developed by another intern, and he had this idea, and I created the design for it, and it was really cool. Yeah, it's not out yet, so I can't really say anything, but it was really cool.
Sorry, that's really cool. Okay. So yeah, so that's more of like a, UX co-op, perspective. Now, lastly, Fred. So so you're a intern for behavior. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can't tell you about specifics. Obviously, I'm still I'm working on an unreleased project, so I
Oh yeah,
can't
of course,
really
yeah.
tell much about
Of
the
course,
actual
yeah.
project. But the environment is really, really great. I mean, I think like the others said, the company really respects the intern's opinion, and it's definitely really great to feel that you're heard. I think one of the fears when you're an intern is that you'll just go there and they'll sort of just use you to do the boring stuff and never really listen to you. You're sort of just like the resident slave that they just keep like on the side to just, do the small stuff. I think, well, from my experience at this internship, this is my first internship as well. That's probably not really the case in most companies. I'm sure there are some that, they sort of give you the smaller tasks that nobody else wants to do. And that definitely still applies. But it's cool to feel like you really do have an impact on the project and that you're doing something that's useful and not just that you're there sort of just, doing nothing on the side and just watching the others work. That's definitely something that I feel at a behavior. That's definitely something that I see from the others that they feel as well, that they're actually working on something that's tangible and that, they can look later and say, I did that, and not just did nothing. I think that's very, very cool. For the internship on my side, I got it through contact. I think contacts are probably the best way to get jobs. So as I said, keeping contact with people is definitely the best way to go. I still had to go through the interview process, but it definitely helps putting your CV on top of the pile for the recruiters. But yeah, it's really, really a lot of fun. I'm doing game programming. So I work in Unity. So it's a C# coding basically. And yeah, so I've worked in Unity before. So it's, even though I did have a lot of experience in this relatively specific skill, I think applying it in a professional context is definitely very different. And you learn, one thing that I learned is, the standards, the coding standards is definitely something that you notice because when you do a project on your own, you sort of just like write code that works and just, if it works, you forget about it. It's sort of like this black box. But when you're actually responsible for your code, you have to make sure that it's good. And especially in game dev, you have to make sure that it's optimal, that you don't waste time and affect the performance of the game and all of that. So that's definitely something that I learned, and it's a lot of fun. You learn about a lot of new things, and then you sort of subconsciously apply it elsewhere, and you learn to write better code and make it more readable for other people. So that's definitely a perk of, having writing code professionally is definitely a good thing to learn how to write better code.
Yeah, so so it's much different from just like writing, code yourself, right? Like having like uncommented code and like a bunch of like unreadable stuff, right? Like exactly like a black box, like you said. Zaid, you want to mention?
Yeah.
something?
I guess I just wanted to give tips on like two things that Fred said.
Mhm.
First thing he said was Let me remember. Yeah, so like a lot of the times you might be afraid that you'll be going to a company that kind of might just make you do the menial tasks. I think the word for it in industry is toil. It's basically tasks that can be easily automatable, very boring, don't really contribute much to your overall development as a programmer. A really good way to get past that is to actually ask during the interview examples of projects that other interns have done, or a certain project that you could be doing if you worked there. The reason why you might want to ask the examples of projects other interns have done is because sometimes they might not tell you if or they may not be able to tell you about like a project that you'll be doing in case you don't take the job, right? And then you know information that is behind NDA. But yeah, the other thing Fred was talking about, dang, I completely forgot. I'll come back to it if I remember again, but if I do, I will raise my hand again. So sorry about that. I completely forgot what it was.
Totally fine. Of course, yeah. If you remember, just raise your hand, whatever. Okay. Very very cool, Fred. Yeah, C# definitely a cool language. Definitely, it's one I started off with, so yeah, I like it. And Behavior is a pretty cool game dev company. If I recall, they did Dead by Daylight. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, okay. It's one of the game I like a lot. But all right. So now we're gonna move on from work and co-op. Again, Zaid, if you remembered, we'll go back to it, of course. So now we're gonna talk about something that a lot of students, high school students, get stressed out about, and something that I'll be stressed out about next year, going in grade 12, the admission process, right? So, first of all, so Zaid, tell us what you think is important, right? So, about like what are like the most key factors that got you admitted into Waterloo CS?
I mean, obviously, I don't really know that for sure because they don't tell you what gets you in. They just tell you that you got in. But I think definitely because my marks were actually like on the lower side of things for computer science. I think the admission average is something insane, like a 98 right now. Is it? I'm not sure what it is, but like when I
Very
applied,
high
it was
this year. Very high
it's
this
like
year. Yeah.
between a 97 and 98.
Mhm.
I got in with like a 96, I think 96 and a half. I think definitely what made me stand up is extracurriculars in fields that are kind of considered kind of opposite to like computer science. I was very interested in things like biology, which you don't find many people interested in. Math also interested in. Psychology. I petitioned for like so in high school I took the International Baccalaureate program, IB program. So I petitioned for my school to actually host a psychology course for the SL, I think it's called, standard level. My memory is like fading me a little bit, but yeah. So I had a lot of initiative when it came to things like psychology and even things like student mental health, leadership positions in those initiatives. So I think that definitely gave me an edge. Another thing I did in high school was play a lot of sports. I played tennis at a competitive level. There was a regional tournament that happened and I got like second in that. So I think that if you have a lot of extracurriculars, it definitely helps a lot for Waterloo to boost up your application. And I guess like one of the things I'd say is a lot of the times you might be dealing with a lot of imposter syndrome. I know for sure that I did, even though like I'm like recounting this now and I'm thinking, hey, those are actually some good stuff. I know definitely at the time I did not think so. Definitely at the time I was comparing myself to the absolute best in each of those things. So I never thought that I was good at like essentially anything that I was doing. So I'd say to kind of alleviate some concern or anxiety that like you have to have confidence in what you're doing, and you have to like transfer that confidence into your application, I'd say. I think it helps a lot with stress management, especially like in a time that I know firsthand is super stressful.
Yeah. And was there any like significant achievements you had during high school that you like to mention? So like, I know like Waterloo has the like their TCC contest, right?
Mm,
The Euclid, of course, right?
yeah.
So any specific achievements you like to mention, or any like hackathons or anything on that line?
Yeah, no hackathons in high school. I began too late for that, but I did take the CCC like soon after I started, and it wasn't significant or anything, but I think I got like 20, like top 25% of like that year. I know a lot of people get usually like way higher than that. But with regards to like CCC, that was it. Euclid, no, I forgot what Euclid was out of, but I remember I got like a 64, I think. Is it out of like 100 or is it out of 81? I
I'm
think, I don't know.
pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's 100. I'm not sure though.
100.
100. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Peck.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100,
yeah. I mean, I got a 64. That's like absolutely nothing. But I just really enjoyed those contests because like
Mhm.
they're as I said, like puzzle-like questions, and like I did attempt to answer them, and it was fun. So yeah, I did Euclid. I did, what is it, Canadian Senior Math Competition, CSMC. That one I bombed as well. I don't even like remember what mark I got on that. But my highest achievement of those contests, I think, was the CCC. I got like top 25%.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I know. Dmush has like an archive of all like the different TC problems. So yeah. Okay. Interesting. Completely forgot what I was gonna say, but okay. So, oh yeah.
I remember the second thing that
Oh
Fred was
yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about.
Okay. Go ahead.
Contacts are super, super, super important for this. The internship I have right now at Riot would, I'd say I'd have had way lower chances if I hadn't had a referral from a friend of mine who interned there last year. The first kind of couple parts of the Riot application process are the hardest to get through. So a referral that gets you through them is absolutely important. And it is similar with many other companies. I know a bunch of companies would actually just immediately skip you to the next step if you provide a referral. So definitely contacts are great.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So next, yeah. Chris is raise your hand. Yeah.
No, because I forgot to mention during when we were saying extracurriculars, there's a lot of clubs like computer science club. I know somebody that's part of it as well, like that are really excellent for just networking. And as Fred said earlier, you'll definitely see these people like at least once or at least some of them throughout your career. So it's really important to build the networks, and you can do that through extracurriculars, which is also a reason why you should, branch out from just studying, because it'll be, I don't want to say useful, but it'll be good for you in the end to know a lot of people.
Okay. That's very good to know. So I was going to ask you next, but can you tell us if people are comfortable sharing about a bit about your grades or like extracurriculars, any significant achievements you like to share, and like stuff that helped you get through the admission process to get to system design engineer student at Waterloo?
I think my experience was kind of similar to Zaid, as in like I hadn't really done tech before, like nothing CS, not really. I didn't take a single CS course, and I didn't really know any UX design. What I stood up for more was also my extracurriculars. My average was like 96.5, 96.3, not very high. But I had like a really strange range of extracurriculars. Like I was a cameraman in my church for like 4 years. I did robotics. I created a student fashion magazine, and like I did the swim team at school. I did tutoring. I did mural painting. I had like a leadership position in like the International Films Club or something. Yeah. And I think when I was doing admissions, like I researched a lot, and the thing everyone repeats is that Waterloo loves like leadership positions, like something that shows that you can take initiative and create these things. Like, for example, for me, the International Films Club is something that started out as kind of a small thing with my friends, and then we ended up getting more members in grade 12, and we kind of had weekly meetings, and we had the initiative to do these things. And same with the student fashion magazine, like it's something that we kind of wanted to do. And originally before COVID, it was we're going to do like a full-on runway where we would collect money, raise money for charity, which never ended up happening because of COVID. But it was just something else to show initiative. And as Zaid said earlier, like this kind of passion and leadership is definitely something you should reflect on your AIF, because no matter how like cool your extracurriculars are, if it's not communicated very strongly, so you have to be really confident in yourself, just portray yourself, think yourself the best out there, and you should put that on your AIF. I didn't really have any significant achievements. Like Zaid said earlier, I did do a lot of the Waterloo math contests, but because they were fun, like I didn't prep for them. I just was like, the questions are really interesting. They kind of tickle my brain, and I just found them enjoyable. Like I didn't even memorize the dates for them. One day I would show up and everyone's in the cafeteria and I'll be like, oh yeah, there's a math contest today. And I would enjoy them, but they're really interesting. I didn't really get anything significant, nothing top whatever percent, but they're good to do, I think, especially if you're a bit better at math than me, you can definitely do like place somewhere. Did get honor roll though, that's about it. And anything to help through admission process, like honestly for me, there was this big Discord server called Ontario Universities, and I remember it helped a lot that I knew everyone was stressing with me, because I'm not alone in my pain. So everyone was stressing together, so that definitely helped me kind of be a bit less stressed. I don't know, maybe it was that I was so stressed that I just stopped thinking about it, but yeah, that worked out, I think. And honestly, yeah, just it's an experience. You'll still be stressed for it. There's not much you can do to stop.
Yeah, I'm actually in that same server. But yeah, definitely it definitely helps knowing that other people are on the same boat as you, right? You're not the only one that's super stressed out, right? And yeah, so that's some great advice. Thank you, Krista. So next I'll hand it off to Fred to talk about his experience, right, getting admitted into a CS student at University of Montreal. A bit, if you feel comfortable sharing, a bit about your grades, extracurricular, significant achievement. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, for the admission, for me, it was pretty straightforward. Because basically I was at a pretty good high school, like a really good one, probably one of the top ones in Quebec, and obviously, well, CJET, that goes with it in the Quebec system. So it was pretty straightforward for that. The problem was that obviously being a lot harder as a high school in CJET, the Quebec grades weren't really, it was a lot harder for Quebec students. But for me, I was very interested in AI around that time. So UdeM having an AI research lab sort of associated with the university made me really want to go there. And it's definitely still like Mila, who was founded by Joshua Bengio, definitely still in my goals to go work there sometime, or at least get something there. So I definitely think that was a big factor for me. For the admission process, I mean, they said a lot of it. You just, I mean, grades are important, of course, but it's a lot about what makes you different from any other student. And I think the main difference is just being involved in a lot of stuff, and leadership positions, as it was said, is one of the best things that you can have, because it shows not only that you're interested in whatever cause that you're working in, but also that you're able to have other skills in that, and not only school skills, but also just like life skills, like competencies that are going to be useful to you. And for universities, I think that's good as well, because it shows that you can be successful after you leave university, because that's really what they're looking for, is just students to put on like the wall of like alumni that went to school. And if you can show that you can be on that wall, then they'll want to take you.
Thank you, Fred. Yeah, I guess like the end goal is like if you can make a name for yourself in the industry, right? And the university wants to take you, so they gotta be able to see that you have that potential, right? So, Jade, Fred, Carissa, any of you, do you have any like closing or like final thoughts about this year's applicants who are like, or well, this year's done, but like next year, so like the 05 kids, right? That are stressed out about like the admissions. Like any closing final thoughts?
I mean, I feel like it would be too easy to say don't stress too much about it. It's definitely normal. I mean, that's what I can say. It's normal. I think everyone goes through it when going through university admissions. It's normal to be nervous. Everyone gets nervous. And honestly, like Carissa said, you have to find a way to make yourself look like the best student they're ever going to see, and just get involved in stuff. If you're applying in next year, check out what clubs your school has. If they don't have anything interesting, start your own thing, get people interested. I think it's definitely what will give you an edge over other people.
All right, sorry.
I know a bunch of like people's fears are around, or at least I know them. Mine was at the time. It was around you have one choice, like your top choice, and that's the one you want to make, and you don't want to make any of the other ones. It's just your top choice. It's like your hide or die, essentially. And I just wanted to like dispel that a lot. The computer science field, in my opinion, this one, and I'd say biology and things that go down the med route, are some of the only fields that are very, very, very open to people regardless of their background. I say biology because you just need a great GPA in undergrad. I don't think it matters where you actually go to head into head school, things like that. But for computer science as well, to get into the industry, they care way more about your experiences than they do about where you come from, right? It can like be like a very slightly helpful boon to have like a named university, but if you can showcase that you have amazing experiences, and that is mainly gotten through connections, you connect with people, do side projects, do hackathons, win awards for hackathons. I know I've gotten a couple of those since I began, which definitely helped me out with my first few internships. Those are most definitely the most important things. So you do not need to worry if you somehow don't make your top choice. It's not the end of the world. It's actually like, it's a great thing either way. It is simply what you make of it with regards to your own experiences that you come across.
Thank you so much, Jade. Those are some good words of wisdom, right? So now now I want to give an opportunity to everyone that's came to this student panel to ask any questions. So you go ahead, ask in the chat any questions you have, and yeah, to any of the students, right?
I wanted to quickly go off of what they said, that your experiences are definitely what people are interested in a lot more than like specifically the name of the school you went to. I think the best thing that you can do not only to get into a university that you want, but also just to get job opportunities later, is to do some projects, some side projects. If you can, code, some coding projects, participating in hackathons, stuff like that. Building up your GitHub a bit, getting some projects on there, some interesting stuff. It definitely helps. Recruiters do go check. And if you have some stuff that they find interesting, it definitely gives you an edge, and it gives you a conversation topic during an interview. I think that's a very underrated aspect of it, is that if a recruiter saw something that they're interested in on your profile, on your resume, or on your GitHub, they will bring it up during the interview, and that gives you like a perfect thing to talk about during your interview, because if it's a project that you liked, then it'll show that you're passionate about what you work on, and you can explain the different technical things that you worked on, which will show that you know what you're talking about. So I think that's definitely something that that's very useful to have, and it does give you an edge as well.
Yeah, that's exactly. And then it also kind of like gives like an opportunity to like the kind of make the interviewer kind of like you, right? Just through what your passion is. Okay, so Pacting asked, what are 3 projects you'd recommend for a CS internship when applying for the first time?
I'd say for me, I kind of didn't. So like one that most people say is your personal website, right? I've never done one. I still don't actually have one. And the reason being is I think you should find projects that you have interest in. So for example, I'll do you one that's really good right now, and I'll show you my resume, or at least the project section of it. Give me a second. Am I allowed to screen share on this?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. Sorry, just a second.
of course, take your time.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Just had to skip through the work section because there is some NDA stuff there. Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, sorry, give me a moment. Sorry.
No problem. If you can't, I can also just like talk through them.
Sorry, I'm just gonna, I'm not sure if somewhere here. Maybe if I. Sorry. Oh. Okay,
Yeah, I can do it now.
yeah.
Okay. Can you guys see the resume here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see over here, this is like my project section. I'm a pretty heavy gamer. I game from time to time. I'd say like I do a bunch, like even weekly. So you'll see that a bunch of the actual projects that I've had are League of Legends related, which is a popular game by Riot. This one's also the same. This one over here is the only exception. This was at my very first hackathon, NSBE Hacks 2020 at the University of Toronto. And the theme of the hackathon was essentially projects that take into consideration the experiences and alleviations of certain stressors that the African American / African Canadian communities may have. So this took into account that. You can see over here at my awards section that I won awards for 2 of those. So I think as long as you make like a project that you know you can invest yourself into, and you know you can like try your best at, and like always put effort into it. And the reason why you're going to do that is because you know you like the content of what you're making. To me, a personal website doesn't really for lack of better terms, like spark joy, right? Like it's not really a project that I'm into, but projects that are tangential to gaming, definitely. I mean, I'm working at Riot Games, right? Projects that are social justice focused or aimed at alleviating stress or injustice in society, definitely the same thing for me. Like they're very, very, very interesting things that I know that I'll be able to give my all to. So I think as long as you really just pick a project that you like, you can get it going. And now that begs the question, how do I know kind of what project I like? Sometimes people will blank on like, you know, how do I find a good project or like a project that I like, or maybe my interests are not really compatible with computer science. And I think it comes from like just things that you use daily. I think you keep track of that. And then you keep track of certain thoughts that you have throughout the day that, hey, I could make this better. A thought that I had, I think a couple of weeks ago, actually, and I've been like researching into if this was feasible as a project or not, is that I have a playlist on Spotify, right? And I wanted to sort it in a way such that the ending of one song is thematically appropriate for the beginning of another. I kind of didn't want like a song that goes from like, you know, maybe like acoustics into like a hype EDM song. And I know you can like, you know, sort it into its own playlists and stuff, but at times like the tonality between two songs are all wrong and things like that. So I wanted to see if maybe some mathematical things like fast Fourier analysis, which I know a couple of friends of mine have used before, to convert MP3s into things like music sheets. I wanted to see if mathematical concepts like that could help me kind of sort a playlist into songs where the ending of song X is very thematically appropriate for the beginning of song X plus one. So it feels like one continuous song, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's an idea that I had like a couple of weeks ago. Whether or not if it's like feasible, I'm not really sure. I've been looking into it a bunch. But I think just things like that that happen throughout your daily life, you could seize on that and see if you think you're going to enjoy the topic, or if you enjoy the topic that it's tangential to. So in my case, music and Spotify, which are definitely things that interest me. And I think you're on your way to go there.
That's really interesting. It's a really cool idea actually. But what's it called? Yeah, especially this kind of relates to what Fred said, but you should like I'm also a firm believer of having like projects that you're actually passionate about, right? Because it's if you make a project, right, for example, like you're not passionate as you're not passionate about making like a cover website, right? So, you know, if an interview brings it up, right, they're gonna like they like they'll kind of tell if you're not passionate about something, right? So when you're passionate about something, right, you could like, you know, talk about it, you know, and like they'll be able to see that you actually like, you know, care about whatever project you're making, right? So yeah.
I've not really had an interviewer ask me why I haven't made a personal website for things like that. I think usually you just link your LinkedIn, your GitHub. For me, most of my hackathon projects are on DevPost, so I link my profile on DevPost. But I've never actually had like an interviewer ask, "Hey, how come you don't have a personal website for this?" I don't. I think they know it's not really that important if you have like other projects to make up for it, because it's really just showcasing if you know the languages, right?
Yeah.
There are some other questions if you want me to go through them in the chat.
Oh yeah. I was about to go into what
Go ahead.
Owen P asked. So Owen says to Zaid, I'm heading to Waterloo CS next year. If you took or have friends who took them, the advanced courses for the 1A term at Waterloo, so math 105, 145, 147, CS 145, how is it? And then he says, I heard the marks are curved and the exams are slightly less cancer. Obviously, the course itself is much harder. So any comment?
Almost everyone who I know has taken advanced courses to completion say that they are by far content-wise the best decisions they've made. The good thing that Waterloo does is that they allow you to kind of test these advanced courses for like up to, I think, a month and a half for the first like couple assignments, and then you can drop to the less advanced version if you feel like you can't handle it. I took Math 145 personally. I thought that it would be really cool, and it was really cool. I learned concepts in Math 145 that I didn't see, or in the first couple of weeks of Math 145 that I didn't see repeated until like CS, like third year CS courses. But to me, I found it like really hard at the time, and I really couldn't like wrap my head around what was going on. So I did have to drop from Math 145. I have a friend who's taken CS 145. He said it's absolutely amazing and he really liked it. It is definitely harder, but they do curve you. Yeah, so yeah, the marks are curved. As for exams, I don't really have a comment on that. I know they're definitely hard, but I just don't know if they're like insanely difficult or anything like that. CS 147, I've had some other friends take it and all of them dropped. The reason being was because the first assignment was actually like, apparently it was just like really like difficult or like undoable for them. That's not CS 147, sorry, I was referring to Math 147, which is calculus, I think. But yeah, if you think you have the slightest interest in it, definitely go for it. And if you are struggling with it in the first couple of weeks, I'd say definitely ask the professor or any TAs that exist for help. That's something that I didn't do and I somewhat regret not doing. I kind of just dropped immediately because I was in the mindset that like, hey, everyone around me is doing so well in this course and I'm not. It's clear that I don't belong here. But I think you can definitely belong in such a course if you need help, as long as it's like actually interesting to you. Then you should definitely go for like office hours, anything like that to seek help for it. Again, like people who've completed these courses or any advanced course in general usually say that they are by far like the most fun courses they've done. They teach them such interesting, mind-blowing things even. So yeah. Pack, also unrelated, sort of related, what rank am I in league? Hit a peak of Plat 1 last season. Right now I'm Plat 4, but I'm not like playing as much as I used to. But yeah, that is my rank in league. Thank you.
So Owen, yeah, he asked a final question. How does the specialization system work? So like AI specialization.
I'm grappling with that right now. Specialization system works. There's a checklist of courses essentially that you have to fulfill. And once you fulfill them, once you get your degree at the end of your 4-year program, you just tell them, hey, I finished this checklist for courses. Can I have a specialization on top of that? And they'll give you that. The AI specialization is an example. Another one is a human-computer interaction specialization. There's a bioinformatics specialization, digital hardware specialization, and they all just depend on like what courses you can take. I will tell you though, something that an advisor told me, where if you are taking this just so you can kind of flaunt it on your degree and say, hey, I have an AI specialization, will you let me into an AI job? It doesn't work that way. It doesn't help. These specializations are, you can almost see them as decoration. They have absolutely no functional purpose, I've been told by advisors, when you're trying to apply for things that that are in their field. What matters more for those are side projects or internships in those things. Specifically for AI, I think it's a little harder to get a side project going. If you can, that's great, but it's mostly like internships. And there are also courses on Coursera that can help you get started. The ones by Professor Andrew, and I don't know how to say his last name, it's NG from Stanford. He's his course certification on DeepMind.ai is great for things like this. But yeah, the specialization system, it's great for your own interest, and the certificate just shows that you were interested enough to take those courses, but it doesn't actually have any functional purpose post-graduation. Oh yeah, so there's not a, I think they do have a website, but the courses aren't on there, they're on Coursera. So I'll just link you the Coursera link for the DeepMind.ai certification. Let me take a look. Where is it? Oh, another cool thing is that once you get into university, you get like a free subscription to Coursera. So you get to do a lot of those like cool courses, and it's like paid for and everything. Why isn't this showing up? Sorry, give me a second. Keep asking questions though, guys. I'm just looking to find the website. There it is. So this is a specialization. So it has 5 courses in it, right here. And so if you make your way through those courses, they were recommended to me by a PhD in artificial intelligence at the flight software company that I worked at before this. So needless to say, they're probably pretty great.
Okay, that's interesting. I think Rick maybe, or I don't know. So he asked to Frederick, have you enjoyed working in the game industry, and like, did it live up to your expectations?
I can go first if you want, Fred. Sure. Yeah, 100%. I really, really like it. Before coming to Riot, I didn't know like maybe if I'd be taking a return offer here, but every day they convince me further and further towards that line. And like I can't I don't know how much I can say, I guess, about the actual work experience, so I'll like toe it on the safe side. But it definitely did, like it has been living up to and crushing my expectations so far, for like absolutely top, beating other industry giants in like the way they treat their employees and things like that. So and this is specifically for Riot. So I don't know how many other gaming companies follow that suit, but yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, as for me at Behavior, I mean, it's great. The environment there is really, really good. For me too, it completely crushed my expectations. I think I had this this vision of the game dev sort of field that you work like a lot and you get sort of just like used a lot to do a lot of small stuff. And I think a lot of people have that vision of the game dev industry where you're just like a pawn in the whole game making machine. But honestly, for me, it's been really, really great as well. I think we talked about this a bit as well before, but they definitely take into account your opinion, and you have an impact on how things are done. And it feels really good because people come to you and ask you questions. And, you know, when I work hybrid, so I do go to the office a few times, and sometimes I'm working on my project and someone from another project just like sitting close by asks a question like, hey, do you know how to fix this? Or do you know what's the problem here? And it's honestly a great environment to be in because you feel like it's a safe place to just ask questions to anyone. And you know, everyone there probably knows what they're talking about if they're, you know, at the office. So it's a really great place to work at. I can't talk for the whole field, like Zaid said, but definitely Behavior is another great workplace to be at. So yeah, definitely lived up to my expectation and surpassed them for sure.
Sounds like it did live up to the expectations of both you guys, so that's nice. So is there any other questions? Oh, so he says that's great to hear. I'm hoping to get into the gaming industry too. Would you happen to have any sample projects that helped you get in?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I knew that the company was interested in Unity programming, so I knew that was what I would be doing. if I did get the job. And it is something that I was interested in. And I'm definitely on the school of thought that you modify your resume for each company that you apply to, especially for the ones that you're seriously considering or that you have a contact in that are definitely going to take a closer look at your resume. So I did put a few of my Unity projects on there. Well, specific sample projects, I mean, we can probably talk about that later on, probably like on the Discord server if you want. Like I could show you some projects that not an issue, but yeah, for sure, projects are what they look at. I did get a question about that, you know, in my interview. The recruiter asked me like, "Hey, I saw this project on your GitHub or on your resume, and I was wondering how you built this, or what did you think? What did you learn from this project and whatnot?" I think projects are definitely very useful, especially in game dev, because having prior experience is very valuable to them. Because if they have to teach you, you know, how to use the actual software, it's normal that you don't know how to use it professionally. But if you have to learn about every single small thing or like what each thing does in the software itself, then it's definitely a lot more work for them, and the less work they have to do, then the better.
All right. Yeah, Zaid, you know, kind of went through your projects already, but so all right, Paxton asked, would a small game project be relevant for a software development job?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. That's actually one of the bigger projects that one can do. So before this, when I was showing my resumes, the two projects I had on there that were league related are kind of like side-ish. They're not actually like games or anything, but things that kind of use the league IP for a personal project just to like showcase programming abilities. An actual game, that's a fantastic experience to both showcase your passion in the field and your actual skills in it. What I've heard from people at Riot is that they really like it when you actually have a project that you've completed. So if you have like examples of this game in the form of like a video or the actual game itself, that would be fantastic. A red flag that they said is somebody who has like a lot of projects on their resume that are not completed, because that shows that kind of like they need to improve a lot on that final part of getting a project through to completion, and that is obviously a very important part for any project, but specifically games at Riot, which have a very, very strict like gateway path in order to get them through.
Okay. Yeah, and I also feel like correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like game development or just making game products, right, is one of those things or projects where you could always expand upon, because there's so many systems you could add, like inventory, score, like different physics, right? You know, more like different like graphics and all that stuff, right? You always expand on it. So
Yeah, a game is never really finished, is it?
yeah.
You can always update something, add an extra
Mhm.
level, keep on expanding on it. So that's definitely a good point. But I do agree with Zaid on that one, that having finished projects is definitely a very good look on you, because it not only shows that you can do, like you can work in any part of it, that if you built all of it, that means that you can think of an idea, you can make it come to life, you can expand on it, develop it, and you can polish it to make it look like a complete project. And that's all the phases of a project are super important at a job. So having finished projects is definitely very, very good.
And also, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it also shows that you could kind of go through that process of like testing like for like bugs at the very end, right? and shows that, you know, you kind of like a bug-free final project, right? And yeah, because going through bugs, probably major part of the job. So yeah.
Obviously, like no game is bug free, but it's great to have things like that. As long as you have like a playable experience that's like shippable, I'd say it's a great thing. This is also where connections come in handy. I have a coworker at Riot right now who's also another intern. One of his projects was it's now like I think it's nearly a fully fledged game. It's on Steam, and it's a project that he's worked on with something like a team of 20 to 25, and the way he got to know like most if not all of them was through connections with them at other events, things like the Game Developers Conference, small game. I'm not really fully well versed in like game conferences because this is like my first game development industry job, but things like that that help you connect with other names in the industry are absolutely fantastic. So he's in a team of like 20 to 25, and like if you guys want to check this game out, I play tested it for him a month or two ago, and it was absolutely fantastic. I'm just finding a way to link it right now. How does one share on Steam? Do keep going though. Oh, here you go. If you guys want to check this out and see like what, and of course, like you're going to see this and you might be overwhelmed with like, oh, this looks like an actual finished product. You don't need to get like anywhere near the level this is, as I understand, like an actual game that they want to commercially sell, like as part of their own thing. But this is kind of the example of what good connections can make you, and definitely this is like an example of a project that skyrocketed him on top of like the applicants list.
Wow, that looks like a very great game. Oh, okay. All right. So, yeah, it's a very cool game. Is there any other questions you like to ask? Anyone? Okay, looks like we don't have any other questions.
I mean, if anyone has other questions, you can always ask on the server.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, ask on the Curious server. Yeah, the intro video is really cool. Some nice animation. All right then. So again, if there's any other questions, feel free to ask on the Curious server. And yeah, so thank you to Fred, Carissa, Zaid for taking time out of their day to do this panel, right? So thank you guys so much. And yeah, I think this concludes the student panel. Just thank you guys so much for all the
Thank you
advice.
so much
everything.
for having us.
Of course, yes.
All right, and
Thanks.
again, if you guys want to reach out to me, there's the Curious Discord if anyone has any questions, and yeah, my Discord, I'm gonna just type it in chat here in case anyone has any further questions. And yeah, thank you again for this event, moderators of Curious. This is a fantastic idea. I don't think I actually had this back when I was in high school, so to see something like this specifically geared towards high school students wanting a job in tech is very, very cool.
Yeah, again, thank you so much for coming out. Yeah, so thank you so much. Yeah.
And thanks to everyone for staying and asking questions. It's really good to see people interested. And I guess if you're watching this on YouTube, join the server and ask questions as well.
Yeah. Of course. All right then.